Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome aboard once more for the afternoon game drive. You are with Safari Live, and we're in Kenya, in the Masai Mara, watching some secretary birds walk across the plains. And what a wonderful afternoon it is, and I'm sure that it's going to be. Look at that, with the escarpment in the background. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera we have Archie. Thanks, Archie. It's a wonderful 28 degrees centigrade, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and we've come out here out towards the border of Tanzania, in the same area that we were yesterday with the hyena den. It's a little bit quiet near to the hyena den, a little bit hot at the moment, so maybe we'll go back to the hyena den a little bit later. But in the meantime, we've got a multitude of animals that are walking around here on the plains, and just stopping here. We started off with those secretary birds, but I want us just to have a look at the tree here, because we've spotted something quite special there. If we go in, and Archie has a nice look there, and that is a tree Angama, otherwise known as a blue-headed lizard. Now, it's a little bit of a shame that he's in the shade on this side, but he's probably warmed himself up nicely. Now, please remember, everybody, please join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Send us your questions and your comments. We'd love for you to be involved as we go on this reality game drive. It's the biggest game drive in the world, and we'd love for you to be involved. Now, this is obviously a male, because the males have elaborate colors with the lizards, and the females quite similar to that with birds, where they are quite drab, and the male doing all the showing off. He's also quite a lot larger than her. And I think the tree that he's on is a shepherd's tree, one of the Boskia species. But what a wonderful sight this is, and we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to just move around slowly in this area, but while we do that, and while we see what else we can find, let's head you over to Taylor, who I'm sure can't wait to say hello.
I cannot wait to say hello, Ralph, and I know you're pretty excited about finding that hyena den, but we're starting off with my favorite animal in the whole wide world that have just crossed the Mara River, and they made it all out safely. That's exciting. It's quite a large herd that have come from the Masai Mara National Reserve, and it looks like they've just treaded along the water, and I don't think the river is particularly deep at the moment, because there's a couple of teeny tiny elephants in there that haven't quite got their heads wet. So that's good news. So it must have been an easy crossing for this herd, and hopefully they didn't have too much trouble with the crocodiles or even the hippos. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Manu, and this is a live and interactive safari. Manu in the sounds. He's worse than me, I promise you. So if you'd like to chat to us, perhaps ask Manu why he makes such strange sounds when he says hello to all of you. You can hashtag Safari Live, or you can also talk to us via the YouTube chat. I'm going to jump up ahead. The reason why is I want to get a little bit closer to this herd of elephants and have a better look. But it's a fine day out in the Mara. It's been absolutely perfect. Just the right amount of wind, just the right amount of sun. And sadly, I did not get to relax at the pool today. I need to work on my tan. Otherwise, I'm going to become see-through again, and Brent will tease me. Right, this is a much better view. And hopefully they come and splash in this marshy section. Wow, couldn't say that one today. Try and say that 10 times over as quickly as you can. I reckon you'd probably spew out a bad word. But it's a nice herd of Ellies, like I said. It's an average size herd, I would say. There's even a little lilac-breasted roller just resting up on that tree. That's those elephants are walking past, and it doesn't seem to be too bothered by the Ellies around at all. Julie, you've said lots of lovely Ellies. Always. Elephants are always lovely, unless they're angry with you. Then they're not so lovely. Then they're quite terrifying. And you can see the bird's not even looking at the elephants. The elephants are not really looking at the bird either. Oh no, there I lied. Turned its head. Just making sure no one's getting too close. You can see a couple of them have splashed themselves with a bit of water to try and cool themselves down, but nothing too extreme. But I reckon on this very, very hot day, we could see more elephants going either for a swim in a lugger, or hopefully even better, we're going to catch them crossing the Mara River. So that's going to be our goal. We're going to check every stretch of it. Actually, have a listen to the sounds as they walk through the marsh. That's quite a deep lugger in there. Look at all the elephants. That one's waving his trunk around like it just don't care. Having a great time splashing around in there. Oh, this is magical. What an incredible experience. Now, that's a spot I would not like to get the car stuck in. It's deceivingly deep, as you can imagine. Isn't this absolutely amazing? I love the sounds of the water as it's splashing once the elephants are kicking it and also stepping on all of the grass. It's quite... Here we go. Come on, you can do it. Slipping and sliding, having to turn the 4x4 on to get out of that. It was kind of like me, except what I always say, with speed you can do anything. Now I'm going to keep driving. Sorry everyone, there's a car that's parked right next to us. I just want to get ahead of them, as I do not want to eat their dust. I've decided today I will be eating no one's dust. Thank you, elephants. That was fantastic. I'll eat the elephant's dust, though. That's okay. Right. How nice was that? What a great start to the sunset safari with the most incredible animals in the whole world. Well, in my opinion, anyway. And let's go across to Ralph. He doesn't have an elephant, however. He's on the border of Tanzania, but he's got a reptile.
Yes, thanks, Taylor. And we still with that little tree Angama. Now, these animals are quite special in that, with it being a tree Angama, this individual will probably spend most of its life in this particular tree. Now, as you can see, just next to him there, he's probably got quite a good food source because there's a beehive, and this would be ideal for him if he is indeed using them as a food source, because a lot of Angamas are actually quite special in that they can specialize in feeding on ants and termites, which is quite unusual for lizards because ants are quite acidic, and so for the Angamas they are able to handle that, whereas the rest of the lizards are not quite as adept at it. And I'm wondering if this tree Angama is using this beehive as its own personal little stash of food, and as the bees come in and out, is just feeding on them. Now, Jim, you're wondering if the Angamas change colors like a chameleon? No, they don't change colors. They do have, however, very elaborate colors meant for attracting females and for with between males. So they will do quite elaborate head bobbing and body posturing between males and also to attract females, and it's normally under the throat area that is the most colorful with the Angamas, and you get different kinds of Angamas. You get terrestrial Angamas and rock Angamas, and then you get some tree Angamas, and this is one of them. Very interesting. The females, they'll normally lay on average about 10 eggs, normally in a cavity, and if they're arboreal, like this tree Angama, they'll lay it in a cavity in the tree, normally somewhere around midsummer, and it takes about 2 months for the eggs to hatch, and they'll stay in that little cavity for a while longer before they all leave. But this male, you can see, he does seem to be posturing a little bit, and you'll often see them bobbing their head, and that can be to attract females or between males, but they can also do that like birds of prey do when they are trying to establish the distance of something that they're looking at, because they have very good eyesight, but they can't judge the depth. So they almost triangulate. They put their heads from side to side and up and down, and in that way they work out exactly the distance before they strike. Very interesting. And they are completely diurnal, so you'll only see them active during the day. During the evening, he'll either go into a cavity in this tree. I don't think that he'll go in with these bees, because he'll probably get attacked. Even though he's got quite thick skin, eventually they would find a soft spot. So I'm sure he'll be finding his own little cavity, or even under a loose piece of bark. But generally with these shepherd's trees, they are quite big cavities in them. And the Afrikaans name of these specific group of trees is witgat, which means white hole, because they also called it the tree of life, because they would also often find water, the old transport riders and people moving through these wilderness areas back many hundreds of years ago, they would find water in the cavities of these trees. So it would be one of those life-sustaining trees. And I think we're going to start to move off a little bit. That was a lovely little encounter with something different. We don't always see nice little creatures like that. Now, Tom, you're wondering what bird you can hear calling, and I'm not sure if Archie's going to be able to get sight on it there, but it is, the old name for it was a Cape turtle dove, and Archie can't really get it on screen, but we can still hear it. So the old name being a Cape turtle dove, the new name being that a ringneck dove. There it is. And what we... Okay, folks, we're going to quickly go over to Taylor. I think she's got something exciting for you.
Look at the cool things that we've got today. I keep asking for baby elephants chasing egrets, but we've got a sub-adult elephant that has decided to chase the Topi and the waterbuck around this afternoon, and hopefully it's going to carry on doing it. The poor Topi were just having a rest, especially the youngsters, and very rudely just charged towards them. It was quite mean. There we go. It's going to chase the waterbuck now. Yeah, I got a fright. So it just goes to show though how easily you can turn an elephant away just by standing your ground. That waterbuck was not concentrating because he's very excited about a female. You can see he's hot on her heels. So he's kind of ignoring everything else that's going around. And when he stood his ground, that young elephant went, oh, no, that's a bit big and scary. So we also have, the tallest creature in the world, the giraffe. And there's an elephant bull also chasing after that cow. Shame girl, run. Because he looks like he's going to be a bit of a nuisance this afternoon. He's desperately trying to catch up to her, and I think she's desperately trying to get away from him too. She's moving so quickly that she's creating, or the two of them are creating a bit of a dust cloud. But that also goes to show you how desperate we are for rain. Like I said, it amazes me how quickly the Mara dries up. Even though we have these localized showers, it's not getting to all the spots in the reserve, which is a little bit sad. So we've just seen another group of elephants coming out of the Mara River, and Manu and I are hoping that if we can race back around towards some of the crossing points, maybe cul-de-sac, maybe main crossing, we might see some more elephants. We suspect that they're in the marsh on the other side, where Governor's Camp is, and that's where they're coming from. But you can just see that bull couldn't resist a drink of water as he passed a little puddle. Now he's splashing himself. And off he goes again, not hanging around for too long. Scarlett, you're wondering what is the largest herd of elephants I have ever seen? It was probably in Zambia. It was quite common to see herds of 150 to 200 elephants. And a very similar thing would happen in the marshes. Like what we see here, the elephants would all head to those areas. So I've seen a few hundred together before. The animals that I've seen the most together are probably African buffalo. I've seen, 2,000 buffalo together. That's an incredible sight. The sounds that come from those buffalo with all the oxpeckers and the cattle egrets around is pretty spectacular too. But yeah, a few hundred elephants. Seen some big herds in southern Kruger as well. Some really big bachelor herds, 50 to 100 boys all marching along, which is quite spectacular. Oh, careful, giraffe, that you don't step on that waterbuck. You're getting awfully close. And as you can see, this is a no off-roading area, as the sign says. Another waterbuck having a drink by the looks of it, just hidden in the distance. See, it seems to all be happening down at the river, so let's not hang around here for too long. The reason why I say that is because I think we're going to get lucky. I think we're going to get our wish this afternoon and see some elephants coming from the Mara River. I think that's going to be really cool. Just because now we've seen two different herds coming out of there, I don't think it's a kawinky dink. I think that's what's happening. So let's race and try and get around. Oh my goodness. Now you're making me think, Mark. Mark, you're wondering what other animal has 4 knees like the elephant? There's not many, hey? I'm trying to think. Now you've stumped me. Is it not maybe just the elephants? What about a hippo? No. I don't know. I actually haven't got a clue. I don't know. My brain is not working very well today. Mark, you're going to have to tell me. I'll have to do some homework this evening. Manu's going to make sure that I do the homework as well. He'll remind me in the morning. Okay, sorry, Mark. Sometimes you have these days where your brain just feels like pudding, and I feel like it's one of those days. I even had to have an artificial energy drink to help with the personality today. But let's go across to Ralph, who I think is feeling way more intelligent than I am today. He's sitting with a lizard telling you all sorts of wonderful things. Maybe he can tell you what other animals have 4 knees.
Yes, thanks, Taylor. And we're just moving around this area. There is a little bit of a drainage line here with some water in it. So I'm just going to pull off here, and we will have a look-see if there's any little interesting birds or any other little critters moving around. And then we can have a little discussion about what Taylor was just talking about. So let me just have a look-see over here, and we'll just stop here. And this nice little cool water line. Now, with the elephants, it's quite interesting because I've actually seen a carcass of an elephant, and we used to talk about elephants being plantigrade, which is walking on the whole foot. But when we looked at the carcass and we actually saw without the skin around the foot, you can actually see that they are digitigrade, which is very much like all the cat-like animals and all the dog-like animals, walking on the finger, but with the rest of the foot raised. So they're actually quite similar to all the animals like that, the dog-like animals and the cat-like animals, obviously with a much bigger size and obviously a little bit different in terms of their digestive system, etc. But with the foot structure and the leg being very similar to that of all the dog and cat-like animals. But with the elephant being very similar to the dugong and the rock hyrax, they have a very wide evolutionary leap, so they have moved along quite substantially from those particular animals. Now, all we are hearing at the moment are the little long claws and the pipits, but it's very quiet and it's quite hot at the moment, so things are keeping themselves in the shade. Now, Sue, you're wondering if there's another ecosystem like the Mara in the world. Well, Sue, there are quite a number of systems like this in Africa, but you don't really have this massive migration of animals. They have been stopped in a lot of countries, but for me, it does remind me a bit of the Okavango Delta and the swamps, and you do have this sort of semi-migratory movement there as well. But there, it's quite a lot more marshy, quite a lot more bog-like, and a lot more water. But it's quite similar, where you do have these big open plains of grass and marshy areas. The big difference is you don't have this particular movement of animals and massive numbers of wildebeest and zebra crossing the river, along with gazelle as well, but the general numbers being with the zebra and wildebeest. Now, just moving back up towards where the hyenas have been hanging around. As I said, I have been at the den, and it's a little bit quiet for now, but that's to be expected when it's so hot like this in the middle of the day. And we're just going to go and have a look and see if they're not spread out a little bit, and then we'll head back towards the den a little bit later. Now, Top Mod, you're asking a very good question, which is there any elephant graveyards like you would see on The Lion King or on any of these animated stories or any other myths and legends? So that is a very interesting question, because there are some areas where elephants have been known to go and die, and you can often find then these bones and so on, but it's not as I would say elaborate as it has been shown on specific little animated shows and that kind of thing. What I have witnessed for myself is that when an elephant goes to die, or it has died, the other elephants will come past and show their respects, and I've seen many times, especially after the fact, the bones and the tracks of the elephants is substantial around that death site. And there's another story that I've read as well, where elephants in captivity, when they have died in a specific place within their enclosure, once they bring another elephant into that area, they are very cautious, and it's almost like they know that there has been another individual, another elephant dying in that specific spot. And they do hold that quite dear, and they almost don't go to that area once they know that. And it's almost intuitive knowledge from the elephant. So very interesting in that, and there's a lot to be read up about elephants and death sites, etc. And I've witnessed it quite a bit in the desert. Now, Mia, you're wondering why this area doesn't have any trees. There are some trees dotted around throughout the plains, very savanna-like setting, but through the history and what I've read and researched on the Mara is that this area was heavily wooded, but the elephants have actually taken a big knock on the treed vegetation part of the Mara and the Mara Triangle especially, but they have moved through and they've knocked down a lot of the trees, so they've really had an influence on the landscape here. And it seems that with increased numbers of elephants, they have really made sure that there's not too many trees that are coming through. You've got a lot of bushes growing along all the drainage lines, and those look like gardenia type trees that we do get very similar ones in South Africa and in the Sabi sands as well. But most of the trees are of a similar height, and it seems that a lot of the smaller trees get hammered by the elephants, so they're not allowing the trees to come of age. They say it could be a problem, maybe not. Maybe it's just the natural cycle of these animals, changing the landscape to more of a grassland and a savanna type biome. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting the way that they have now changed that. But who are we to say that is now unnatural? Is it because we've confined elephants to a particular area and they're not allowed to migrate the big distances that they used to. That's something that we'll never know, because now we have changed things, and I suppose we live on, and it makes it available for a lot of the plains game. So there's pros and cons to having elephants wreak destruction on an area, but all right, I think we're going to go onwards, and we're going to see if we can find anything else exciting. But while we're doing that, let's send you on over to Taylor, who I think is down near the river, and let's see what she's got down there.
We've got a crocodile, which is actually a crocodile. It's just disguised itself very well. There's quite a few of them today. Now I have to have a good giggle. I've been laughing probably for the last 5 minutes now, because I thought Ralph was on the border of Tanzania. He isn't. He was just past Hippopools. So Ralph, you have got a long way to go, I'm afraid. Probably another hour and a half of driving before you get anywhere close to the border of Tanzania. But good luck. Enjoy your adventure. Now, I thought these crocodiles were going to come in for docking. So it always reminds me of me trying to dock a boat when I used to drive speedboats and things around back in the day. And it looks like there were a couple of crocodiles and hippos and elephants and things walking through there. Now, sadly, we have not found our elephants at Cul-de-sac Crossing, but I'm shocked as to how low the water level is in the Mara River. I've never seen it this low. It is very, very, very dry. It's not good. So we desperately need to get some rain very, very quickly. Now, Toma, you're wondering if elephants cross the Mara River. We actually just saw some coming from the Mara River. We've seen 3 different herds now. We saw a 3rd herd on the way here. But sadly, crossing from an area where... But the others, unfortunately, were in areas where we couldn't access them, and we wouldn't have been able to have seen very well. So yes, they do most certainly cross the river. They cross it, I think, a lot more regularly than we think. So, seeing as though our elephants are not here, I think we should go to the next spot. And I don't have to swim in it. Now, Scarlett, you'll want to make sure I don't drive off the edge here. You want... Not really. I've only experienced a couple of thunderstorms in the early afternoon. But otherwise, no, we don't get much rain at all. And in fact, we're not getting any at the moment, but it is going to get dry again. I think we're going to still have a couple of showers here and there. I don't think the rain quite disappears completely like it normally does in the winter of the Sabi sand. There we don't see a drop of rain for months. So I'm sure you get the odd afternoon thunderstorm, kind of like Johannesburg and in South Africa in summer. But it won't be a lot. It'll be quick downpours, and again, because it's so low. That's kind of my plan. We'll go through this section of the river quite quickly. Manu, I think we should go and do some exploring. There's a spot. Remember I said the other day we went past Serena and I said I haven't been down there yet. I think we need to go there. There's another section of the river. And, do you know what? Apparently there's a geocache somewhere here, which I want to try and find near Serena. Obviously we saw one with Brent. Well, you guys saw one with Brent and Craig. They had that old Volkswagen minivan. That was quite cool. And there's a couple of them, I think, scattered throughout the triangle in the Masai Mara Reserve. So I want to see if we can find some of them. It'll be quite a cool thing to do. But that'll be my plan from now until I leave the Mara. I'll try and find it. I also want to go and have a look and see that minivan for myself. That's such a cool find. So that's sort of our plan this afternoon. I'm really, really hoping that we can find some lions in between searching for the elephants, because I've got withdrawal symptoms now, not seeing my favorite cat. I haven't had any sightings of Scar for a while, or the Paradise Pride. Maybe we're going to see them tonight. So we're going to keep checking. We're in Paradise Prime territory now, and as well as the Musketeers. We'll keep our eyes peeled. Ralph is heading towards the escarpment. You better keep a lookout for some jackals, because there's a couple of friendly ones along the way.
Yes, thanks, Taylor. And I just wanted to stop. Locally is known as a moonflower, but it is an exotic plant, and we very often find it next to the roadside or where it's been disturbed. And you can see there it's all in a line in the disturbance next to the road, and it originates from Mexico. Now, it's called a moonflower or the devil's snare because it flowers at night with the moon. So now I just want to show you a little bit about the seeds. We're looking here now. I just need to make it nice and clear for you to see. These are the seed pods, very spiky. And then on the inside we've got all these little seeds, and the South African name for this plant is called malpitta, and that literally means mad seeds, and it comes from the soldiers who used to be frequenting the border between South Africa and Angola, and they got themselves a little bit bored and started to eat on some of these seeds, and they are actually hallucinogenic. So if you take enough of them, they'll literally make you crazy, and that's where the name comes from, or the local name. But when we were doing a small camp, leadership camp, when I was 16 years old, we were out in a little wilderness area, and we had the police come and do a whole drug sort of lecture with us, and they were quite silly in the fact that, but obviously what do young kids at 16 years of age do? As soon as the lecture was finished, we all ran out looking for these malpitta. Now, I was quite scared because of what they had said they can do to you, but I had some friends that weren't a little bit braver than I was, and they were taking handfuls of this stuff, and eventually they were hallucinating. They were climbing over walls that weren't there, and they actually landed up being very sick. So they landed up in hospital having their stomachs pumped, and yeah, needless to say, the leadership camp was a little bit of a disaster. But there we go. Those are called malpitta, and we're seeing them all along the road here, so quite interesting. Nice fragrance? No, they don't actually have a nice fragrance at all. They smell quite almost putrid, so a little bit more of a fly pollination. And you do find a lot of the plants that come from South America, come from desert areas or Mexico. A lot of them do have smelly flowers because they're not using bees and butterflies to pollinate them. They're actually attracting flies. So quite a rubbish, not very nice smell at all. That was just something I thought I'd stop and show you. Just something different. I thought this drive we're trying to find all the odd little things around, and not just doing the usual suspects of lions and elephants. Obviously we'll have a look if we find them. Now, Matt, I think you were wondering, and that with the flowers, so that's basically flower. When it does flower into a lovely white flower, so quite pretty, but quite dangerous in the terms of those seeds. And also it's quite a noxious plant as well, because if the animals feed on this, they can get quite a nasty stomach. And the local cattle and goats and sheep, if they feed on it, they can get quite sick. So it is quite noxious. Not a good plant at all to have around, and one of those weeds, those exotic plants, those invaders that probably come over whether it was in the hay or feed for horses, etc. You know, one of those, because those little seeds have just been able to get through somewhere, and now they've spread themselves all around Africa. But very interesting with the exotic plants that make their way here, and some of them even transport themselves with birds, but that's the natural vectors. But once humans started moving around, especially with the ships, that was when we front once more. Nice to see when it's nice and hot. Always for me nice to see ostrich in the heat haze. And there we have the largest bird in the world. And we're going to sit here and watch them. And when you come back to us, I'll still be here. But from one bird to another, let's send you on over to Taylor and see what bird she's been able to find.
We're about to lose it, but it is a black-chested snake eagle that is catching a thermal. How cool is that? You can see the heat sort of catching underneath its wings and pushing it up. Now, we encountered something quite interesting as we just came around the bend. This it was a jackal, a black-backed jackal. I couldn't imagine, I mean, again, I always tell the story of the tawny eagle that almost snatched up a leopard cub, but I think a black-backed jackal would be a little bit on the large side for a black-chested snake eagle, so that was quite crazy to see. I don't know if it was going for it, if it was just mobbing it. I haven't got a clue. I didn't see enough of it. Just a quick glimpse. And seeing as though we're talking about snake eagles, we did confirm, sorry, I haven't posted about it just yet, that picture of the bird that I showed you was indeed a western banded snake eagle. I looked at some more pictures from the Mara and it definitely matched the coloration. But very cool. Manu's mad birding skills, hey? You know, we've got the skills maybe to identify them, but I surely can't follow them like Manu can. Jiro, you said nice? Yeah, very cool. Been seeing a lot of them. Oh, these are my favorite. Mine. Hello. Crowned lapwings. And these are the seagulls of the bush that are often on quarantine open plains in the Sabi sand. And they make a real racket. But they are such beautiful birds. I love them. And they've got that bright yellow eye, which you can see so clearly now. You don't often get to see such close views. Now, you're standing still. I wonder if you've got a little nest somewhere. Do you have a nest somewhere? No. And even if we were to try and spot it, it would be so difficult. Can we look under its feet quickly? I just want to see if it's maybe... No, those are all rocks. Nice legs, though. They got really long legs. I think the bird that legs I appreciate most have to be the black-winged stilts. They're bright red. And they're in proportion to any other bird. It's got the longest legs for the size of its body, which is quite cool. So we're going to have to try and find some black-winged stilts so I can show you them. I don't think all of you would have seen them. They're around. They're fairly common. We just keep missing them, I'm afraid. Aren't they beautiful? And I'm pretty sure they must have a nest here. They don't want to move. They're quite happy just to stand next to the car, or they really are habituated to the vehicle. That's also another possibility. But they're such cool birds. But these are the mobbing kings and queens. They have no problem swooping down and bopping you on the head, even when you go horse riding. Right, let's carry on. There's a car coming. Certainly are lovely birds. They really are quite cool. And I like them. We don't see them that often now. I mean, we used to see and hear them through most full moon nights in the Sabi sand, always chirping, always got something to say. They're very chatty. They remind me of the seagulls from Finding Nemo that go mine, trying to catch all the fish and the crabs and all those types of things. That's what they remind me of. They're just as annoying. Okay, is that a buffalo or is that an elephant? It's a buffalo. Oh man, I was hoping we'd get some elephants around here. I'm so sorry, Faith. I did not hear a word that you said. Please, can you say it all again? Oh, it's buff. So it seems as though our search for the elephants is actually harder than what I thought it was going to be, but we'll keep on trying. Off you go back across to Ralph, who has got the bird that we were talking about this morning that I want to be.
Yes, we're still here with the largest bird in the world, and you can see them feeding away on the flowering grasses and seeds, and it's wonderful to think that, you know, ostrich eggs, they're about 22 chicken eggs in terms of their size, and you can eat them. They are rather rich, but you can make an omelette out of one that will probably or humans that used to roam around the African plains. They used to store their water in ostrich eggs. They used to make a small hole, empty it out, and obviously eat the yolk and the white as well. And then once it was empty, they would put some salt. They would salt it on the inside, make it very dry, and then pull the skin out. And then it was a beautiful gourd, as they say in French, or like a container or water bottle, and they used to use a piece of wood to cork it. Wherever they went on their routes, they would possibly leave a few in designated spots so that they could come back to that area and find their water still stored in that particular zone. So they made these all over the place. Now, you're wondering when you can expect to see ostrich chicks. They're not particularly breeding any time of the year, so it can be quite random, but they do generally have more so towards between January and March is when they start to get their nests going, but they can do it throughout the year. Up in Namibia, I know that in the desert areas there where ostriches are completely at home, because they are actually true desert animals, being able to withstand extreme temperatures and going without water for their entire life. They obtain moisture from what they feed on. It's all around the resources. So as soon as they get quite a lot of good feed, they will then generally start to mate and make the nest. So it's all around that. Now, Julie, you're wondering what you call a group of ostriches. Is it a flock? That's a good question. That one. I know that there is something like that. I know that where we're heading towards the hyena, I know that we call a group of hyena a clan, but I think it should be something a little bit more political than that, because they are very political characters indeed. But with ostriches, it's not a flock. There's something more exciting than that, and I'm going to have to really rack my brain now in the next few minutes and maybe do some research as well. I need to find out. Now, I hear from FC and Faith sending through to me that Google apparently says that it is a flock of ostriches or a herd of ostriches, depending on the situation. But I'm sure that there's something better than that, and I think Google has failed in that one. We'll have to think of something better. If you've got any thoughts on that, send it through on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube calling a group of ostriches. Okay folks, I have just spotted a hyena, so we're going to try and follow up and see where he's going. But in the meantime, we do have a small little tech problem that we're going to sort out. It won't be
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry about the gremlins lately. They are terribly rude. However, we found an elephant cow and her calf. And that little one looked very tired. It's standing in mom's shadow. They haven't really moved around much. But we know that these young elephants do get quite tired and they need to have rests every now and then. And I was hoping that she was going to walk down to the river. So we've tried to park ourselves in a spot where we might see her cross but maybe crossed this morning. Maybe she came to the western side of the river and now she's going to go back home, wherever she's come from. But we'll see. We'll see what she does now. At least she's on the move again, but there's a little one tailing along. And if you are worried that the little elephant calf is dehydrating or anything like that, don't. They are such tough creatures, and I did see it drinking, so they're all okay. Good girl. The only thing, though, is she might stop and feed along this area. In this particular section of the Mara Triangle, the vegetation is quite sparse, and it doesn't seem to be too sort of lush at the moment. It's actually quite dry, so perfect spot for an elephant. There's lots and lots of life here, and it's quite exciting to come and sit on the edge of the river, because you just don't know what's going to come through, what's going to come down for a drink, what's going to pop its head up next, or what interactions you're going to have. And excuse me, it's my turn, Manu. Manu sneezing this morning. I, however, am sneezing now. Excuse me, everybody. Apologies for that. I'll try not to sneeze again. Got a couple of clouds looming in the distance. Nothing too threatening just yet, but the clouds move and develop so quickly out here in Kenya, and particularly in the area that we're in at the moment. So who knows what will happen? Maybe we get a storm that breaks. I hope we do. Now, Tom, you're wondering if the crocodiles would come out of the river to hunt a baby elephant. No, I don't think a crocodile ever puts that much energy into anything. They sort of just wait for things to come to them. Obviously, young crocodiles, it'll be eating more regularly and catching fish and eating insects and all sorts of things like that. Then yes, definitely, but not an elephant though. Of course, it'll be a little elephant. There'll be little crocodiles. But the bigger crocs spend most of their day just resting up on the bank, waiting for something to come to them. But you can see she's got distracted again. She's kind of like me. Maybe this is my spirit animal here. She's found herself a little bit of a mud wallow and is now splashing around in it. I do apologize. You might be they could hear the beautiful sounds of Africa. But oh, there we go. There's a grinding of the gears of the that makes me laugh. It's so much worse when you've got people in your car and you stall or you do something embarrassing with a vehicle. But there we go. So you can see she's just enjoying herself at the moment. I don't know what this guy is doing. Okay, he's leaving now, so we'll have some peace and quiet in a minute. Come on, girl, show us. I have a sneaky suspicion, though. I don't know if she's going to cross. I don't know. That's a feeling that I'm getting at the moment. I'm not convinced that she's headed for the Mara River just yet. Especially if she's going to cool herself down with some mud. Who knows? Maybe she doesn't like to get her feet dirty, so that's her plan, to get all covered in mud now and then walk across the river, wash up until her knees, and then carry on, and the rest of her body can get. They tend to keep themselves nice and clean, and leopards and cheetah, but they are such messy eaters, so they do have to give themselves a bit of a clean afterwards. No, I think she's not. I don't think she's going to cross. Now, Dave, you're wondering if the elephants will use the long grass as shade for the baby elephants. Possibly. It would definitely provide a bit of shade if a young elephant laid flat in it. However, normally what happens and actually use her large figure to block out the light. So essentially, where a little elephant goes, it always has a shady spot. And isn't that amazing? That mom will do whatever she can to protect that little one, even if it means she needs to be an umbrella. She will do that. So that's quite nice. Are you finished having your mud bath now? That looks so enticing. I also want to go for a mud bath. Not one where I slip and fall on my face, but a planned one. I think that could be quite nice. Or actually just to lounge in some of the rock pools would be beautiful. No, she's heavily distracted this afternoon. I don't know, I think this girl has just come down to feed. Maybe she'll cross a little bit later, who knows? But I want to go exploring into an area that I've never driven before, and I don't think Manu's been either, so we're going to go and check it out. Now, unless she races towards the river, but I'm going to send you back across to Ralph.
Thanks, Taylor. Yes, we are near to the big birds that I want to chat about in a second, but we do also have a couple of hyena that we did just spot, and with it being quite hot, they are still quite lethargic, and there's one moving off up in front of us there. It's just moving away from us a little bit. He's not quite as relaxed as the other individual. We're not far from the den site here. So as I said, we will be heading on over there a little bit later, but nice to have spotted a couple of individuals. As you see those ears just poking through the grass. Now, I did a little bit of research in the interim while you were away with Taylor, watching these ostriches there in the distance, and I found out that a wonderful collective noun for ostriches is a wobble of ostriches. So I think that's a lot better than a herd or a flock of ostriches. And a couple of other little interesting facts is that an ostrich could run the London Marathon in 45 minutes, which I think is rather fast. And a couple of other things is that I've had an omelette from an ostrich egg, but it would take an hour and a half to hard boil an ostrich egg. Now that would be quite interesting, because that is a massive hard boiled egg, and it takes about an hour to soft boil. So an hour to soft boil, hour and a half to hard boil, and that's rather a long period of time. If you think that a chicken egg takes about 10 minutes, if you want to do it hard boiled, probably about 7 minutes soft boiled. Anyway, that's something just interesting. There's the Topi walk through in front. Now, Brent, you're wondering how often ostriches lay eggs, and how many eggs do they lay? Well, they normally lay between 20 and the females laying their eggs in the same nest, and it's the dominant male and female that will then look after them. So you can have about 60 chicks in the end, but it's not all from the same couple, it is from all the other females as well. And they'll arrange those eggs in the nest, and normally a little bit with the dominant female's eggs more in the middle, but they'll also move them around in accordance when they were laid, so that they all hatch at almost exactly the same time, but they weren't laid at the same time. So the incubation then does differ. And it's still rather quiet. There's a little bit of a breeze coming through. Let's move on a little bit and see what else we can find. These hyenas are well into their slumber, and we've just been bothering them here a little bit. So let's leave them to sleep as we'll move on and see what else we can find. It's a lovely sighting, that, with all the ostriches feeding on the grass seeds as they go along. But I've been absolutely amazed by this little area that we're moving into, where the hyena den is, because the more I'm going into the little roads, the more roads I'm starting to find. And you might think it's just grass from here, but there's all little intricate river systems, and I've been finding a whole number of new roads. So it's actually an area that I'm starting to discover every day a little bit more, and it's quite exciting. I thought I'd had it all covered, but it's just opened up a whole new area for me to explore. which is great. I love exploring, and in the next few days, I have been saying it, we're going to head across the river, and then it's going to open up a whole massive area to explore for me. So I'm very excited about that, and hopefully find some of those cheetah that we haven't seen in a while. What else are we going to find today? Now, George, you're wondering if any animals get scared off by the safari vehicles and their engines. Yes, they can do, if you don't approach slowly. And obviously it's the smaller animals that do get a little bit more scared, but with there being quite a few vehicles moving through here, it's actually quite a good thing, because the animals become quite used to the vehicles and they know that they don't pose a threat. And you can see the difference where animals start to associate vehicles with danger or with it being a problem is normally results in a big loud bang and normally one of them dying, but they don't really associate that where the animal drops. It's just that big bang that they get scared of. So then that's an association that they make, and then they get very scared of vehicles. And where they do perform hunting, when you drive with a vehicle, you can see how the animals scatter. But here, I mean, we're driving past Topi and zebra, and sometimes you can almost put your hand out and slap them on the backside. They're really not scared of you at all, and it's because of that habituation around vehicles. They just think it's that big old smelly green thing again, but it doesn't present any form of danger. Well, the little things just jump off and move away from the road a little bit, but not to a big degree, so it's not a massive threat to the animals, I think. And a lot of Topi all standing up on their sentry points. It's actually great to have a look at that, Archie. You see the Topi, how they all go up on a little raised area, and then they're looking out to see for predators. Normally having grazed a bit, and then they can go up there and look out for any predators, and at the same time ruminate and chew the cud. You see they're wonderful off in the background, a very big herd of elephant moving through there as well. A nice view. Wonderful scene that is. Now, Spas, you're wondering if there's ever going to be a drone over here in the Mara, like we use in Djuma. There is potential, but there is a little bit of red tape that needs to be worked out. So I'm not going to say yes, but we'll keep you enthralled, and we'll maybe see if we can work that one out. But there is a chance that we could get that going. Obviously, being in a different country, there is a little bit of permits and things that need to be sorted out. So there's a possibility, and we'll see if they can, but I don't think it's been done before, and there's obviously a few permits and licenses that need to be obtained, and once they do that, then I'm sure we'll get down to getting the drones up in the air and looking at the kills and helping us out. Alright, so I'm slowly heading up towards where that hyena den is, but I might take a couple of sneaky little roads off to the side and see where they take us. But in the meantime, let's head you up back to Taylor down by the river.
Afternoon, and I don't know where our elephant and calf have gone. I think they've ducked down towards where those hippos are. Now, because we can't see her, we're actually waiting for the hippos to let us know that they in fact are going to be disturbed, because I'd assume that's the route she's going to walk. It looks like it's quite shallow there. We know that the hippos do prefer the shallower water, so it would be their best option. But they don't seem to be too panicked right now. They seem to be playing around, and we're going to have another okay, let's leave. Okay, sorry guys, there's too many cars here and everybody's going to block out our shot, so we'll go and find some more elephants and hippos elsewhere crossing. It's fine, I'm going to go. No problem. Sorry everybody, this is about the third vehicle that's done this to us this afternoon, so we'll go somewhere else. Ay, ay, ay. We will find some more hippos. We will get it right. We will get the elephants. We'll have the giraffe crossing. The zebras will come. The crocodiles will be waiting on the river. Sorry, everybody. Let's carry on. Let's go see what else we can find. So the area that I want to take you to, that I'm very excited to, and I drive past it all the time. I'm not sorry, Faith. I had my radio just turned down a little bit while we were stationary there, so I can hear it beeping. But it's just over the hill behind Serena. So kind of down in that direction. Oh, let me slow down. So basically over the top of there, that's where Serena lodges, and then we're going to go around. I don't know if we can have signal there, but we're going to give it a bash. We'll try it. If there's too many gremlins, we of course will come back very quickly, but I think it could be quite nice. I don't know how close we can get to the river, but I've always wanted to go down and have a look. I've been around, and it was so beautiful. It becomes quite dense, and there were some really cool roads that snake around, so it could be quite nice. Maybe some new vegetation. We don't often get to drive in and into the thick of the stuff that grows along the river, so it could be quite cool. And with it being a bit windy, maybe there's some animals that are going to use these dense pockets for a bit of shelter. Maybe some warthogs will be around. I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots of animals. Ah, here we go. Now, this is something that I'm hoping to see. James, you said, do hippos and elephants ever have confrontation? Most certainly, in and out the water, in fact. Can you believe it? Obviously, when an elephant enters the water, it's entering the hippo's territory. Even though the elephants love the water, they don't spend most of their time in it. That's where, of course, hippos live. So, we actually touched on this briefly this morning. They're quite tolerant of each other. The hippos will get out of the way. The elephants will also try and a bit of a drought, and there's a shortage of water. Both species, and both elephant and hippo in particular, become particularly aggressive and protective over water sources. So then you can see some serious battles going on. So that can get quite interesting. But out here, with this being so much water, I would imagine that if that elephant cow was, harassed by the big part of hippo, say the big bull came around and she was not happy with the hippos and flapped her ears and trumpeted at them, probably find that the hippos would scatter too. And animals don't want conflict, because they know if something goes wrong, it could be the end of their life. They could become injured, and they wouldn't be able to eat again, or they could get killed. So they are cautious, and they'll only attack when it's absolutely necessary. Hello, Aubrey. You're wondering what is my favorite animal? It's the animal that we've been seeing the whole of the sunset safari. It's an elephant. Many elephants, big ones, small ones, boys and girls. I like them all. You know what I miss, Aubrey? And sorry about that, Aubrey. I got cut off by the gremlins. They're very rude, but I'm back now. So maybe we can get to see one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, which is an elephant bull pushing up against a marula tree and shaking the fruit off of it. It's not the right time of the year for the fruit though, Aubrey. We have to wait until February. But there's some other trees that also get lots of fruit, and sometimes they just give them a bit of a shake, which can be really cool to see. Because if you've never seen how strong an elephant is, if you've only ever seen them walking around, you will be so surprised. And then, Aubrey, you will learn why the elephants are the real kings of the jungle, which is quite cool. Okay, so we're edging towards the area where the secret spot is. Well, it's not a secret spot, and everybody can go there. I just have never been there, so I don't know what to expect. So we're just going now on the main river circuit road that will take me all the way to the Purangut Bridge, but we've still got quite a far way to go before we end up any. Time to go exploring. Let's go and see if the gremlins are going to attack us down on the Mara River in an area that I've never been. Otherwise, Ralph is still on the search for his hyena den and he's inching ever closer.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, and we're also edging a little bit closer to that very big herd of elephants up in front of us as well. And I know that Taylor said that she'd love for Scott and Noel to show you an elephant shaking a marula tree. Well, I've seen them in the desert of Namibia, where they shake the Fadherbia albida, or the false acacia trees, in those oases of the little riverbeds where these trees occur, and they shake those trees for the seed pods that fall down, and it's almost like little bonbons for the elephants, or little sweets. They love it. But so it can sustain them for very long periods of time. Now, I'm hoping to find our way towards those elephants there. Now, Steve, you're saying that you've seen some footage with elephants drunk from marula fruit, and this was probably Jamie Ace's Beautiful People, I think it was. And no, there's absolutely no truth to that. Those animals, I think there was a little bit of drama around that eventually, because it was found out that those animals were drugged, I think, and I'm not starting a conspiracy. It was spoken about that, but it is not possible for an elephant to get drunk from marula, because it doesn't have enough time for it to ferment. Now, yes, they are hindgut fermenters, but they do pass most of what they feed on within 24 hours, and it would have to stay within their body for quite a number of days in order for it to get any alcohol and for it to have an effect. So that was not true, and the baboons being drunk in that movie as well, absolutely not true. I think they were trying to add a little bit of humor to that, and it was in the early 80s and very crude type videos as well. But it was quite funny, but it was very untrue. Now, we are just sitting here watching some of these topi, and while some of them have been lying down, I have mentioned, you will see that they do often shake their head and also put their nose in the grass. That is in an attempt to stop the flies from laying their eggs inside their nose, which then hatch into the little maggots, and they feed on the mucus within the nasal cavity. It becomes very irritating and very it must make them almost mad, but that is what they're trying to do, and they're putting their nose in the grass, stopping the flies from getting in their nose. It doesn't always work very well, but I'm sure you can understand their frustration and why they try and stop those flies entering. A very peaceful scene here. I think we're going to start up again and just move through. We are discovering another little road. Now, Wendy, as we stop here next to these individuals, we've been able to get a little bit closer, and they are quite comfortable with our presence. Wendy, you're wondering how these Topi keep cool, because you never see them in the shade, and behind those Topi there's also some warthog running through. But what they do is they stand out here in the plains, and they do, when they go on a raised point like that one is at the back, they are getting a lookout, but they're also putting themselves nicely into the breeze. And what they will also do, like a lot of the plains game will do, they will put themselves would expose themselves to more surface area of the sun, and that would heat them up a lot more. So they stand in line with the sun, so it's almost only on their back and not on their side, and that does help for thermoregulation. So a little bit in the breeze, and then trying to get the least amount of sun on their body. Obviously when the sun's straight above them, they can't do much about it, but they are so well adapted to these kind of conditions that if it were any different, they would then struggle. It's quite similar to that of the ostrich and the springbok and the oryx or gemsbok, which are so well adapted to desert-like conditions that if surviving, because they've got such a good cooling mechanism and a nasal everything cooler, that when it is cooler and moister or wetter, they actually struggle. So everybody evolved and adapted to the specific conditions that they've been living in over thousands, if not millions of years. See how they're all in a line, very often facing into the wind, trying to see what is being transported to them. Now, Mia, you're saying if the Topi had wings, they'd look like the Cestrals from Harry Potter. Mia, unfortunately, I don't really watch Harry Potter, so I wouldn't know, but I'm sure that you're right on the button, because they do look quite animated with those horns, don't they? And quite funny looking creatures. But I'll go with you, Mia. Lovely. I did see some of those warthogs running off quite fast. I wonder if there was something after them. So I'm going to just keep my eye out to the left there and see if I spot those warthog again. It's nice here out in the plains that if we do see some animals running off, there's normally something after them. We'll be able to see it quite clearly. Off to our sort of northeast. We need to find a road that cuts that way. See how we go. There's also some elephants almost directly in front of us, so maybe we'll make our way slowly over towards them. It's always nice to be in amongst the elephants in the mix. Such big animals. But we'll look for anything special along the way as we go as well. Fine combing through these grassland and marshy areas. Now, Sky Doobie, you're wondering when we're going to be following cheetah again. Sky Doobie, in the next few days, I'm going to be heading across the river, and I'm either going to take Manu or Archie with me, and we're going to go on the hunt for cheetah. So I've got that as a top priority, and you need to keep watching, because in the next few days I'm going to make that my mission. I want to find cheetah, and I also want to try and find some wild dogs. I think the wild dogs might be a bit more difficult, but we'll try and find them all the same. And I want to find Malaika. I also want to find the musketeers and all these famous cheetah. I have a lot of experience with cheetah. I have spent a lot of time with them, and I was once called on to be the protection ranger or the trails ranger for a group of researchers that were re-releasing some cheetah, and it was actually a coalition of males, 3 of them. They had done some studies on these animals, and they had relocated them from a different area where they were actually problem animals. And so when we released them in the greater Kruger park, we had these researchers that we had to then follow them for a few days. Now there's something small running through the grass there that I just want to have a look at. It might be a jackal. What is that there, Archie? I think it is a jackal looking towards us. Yep, I don't know if you can see him there. And I was the trails ranger for these. Can you spot him there, Archie? There he is. There he is. Well done. Well done. The very talented Archie found the little jackal for us. And so with that story, I was then assigned as the protection for these researchers. Now we had to go into the boma with these cheetah and let them just calm down with our presence, and then every time they moved around and marked and sprayed against a tree, these researchers would have to run up and quickly get a fresh sample. And the way that they got the sample of this urine was a little glass tube that they literally had to hold the one end and then press the tube against the urine and release the opposite end, and that would give them that tiny little vial of the urine. And then they would take that back to all the vets, and everybody would analyze it and so on. But we were tasked with actually collecting all this data. So we were following these cheetah around within the enclosure. They were getting used to us, and eventually we released them out, and then they had tracking collars on them, so we were able to follow them. And using telemetry, radio collars on them, and then so we would each day go and follow them, and we witnessed them killing impala, literally within 100 meters of us, and we were all on foot. And the one day, which was quite an exciting encounter, we actually got out, and every day I would still remind the researchers that they are dangerous animals, so we always needed to be careful. But sometimes people don't realize, because they've been in close proximity with a specific animal, they can forget that they actually can still be dangerous. So I had to, on a daily basis, remind these guys that we need to be careful when we go out looking for these cheetah, not only because of the cheetah, but because there could have been any of the other big 5 as well. But the one day we were walking out trying to find these cheetah, and with the telemetry, with the aerial, it was showing that these cheetah were very close. So we were really going slowly through the grass, and very much like Djuma area, that kind of thickets. And we were moving through trying to find these cheetah, and at a stage we were almost like, where are they? Because with the telemetry, it was almost showing in each direction. That's how close we were. And all of a sudden, I heard a massive hiss and a big smack next to my foot. And when I looked, it was one of the coalition males, and he had nearly hit me on my foot. So I sort of just took a couple literally 2 or 3 meters away, and then we moved a little bit back. We probably got about 15 meters on them, and then we sat down and we just enjoyed their presence out there in the bush. So cheetah, obviously you can get a little bit closer to them. They're not as dangerous as lion and leopard, but that was a wonderful experience for me. But a reminder that with animals that are habituated and used to human presence, they are actually more dangerous to humans in my mind, because that space becomes less for when they're going to warn you that you're too close. And in that cheetah's scenario, we were literally right on top of them when they told us that we're too close. Now, Kate, you're wondering if jackals and wild dogs and hyena are all part of the canid family. Well, not the hyena. They're part of the Hyenidae, and the rest, yes, there is a long line of them. I believe they've got all the the same chromosomes, but they are all particularly evolved on their own little line. So they are part of the canids, but with a similar, same amount of chromosomes, but different little groupings of their own. The jackals would be closely related with the foxes, and obviously the spotted hyena closer to the brown hyena, but the wild dogs almost a little bit on their own, but within the same evolutionary line. There's always that leaning towards being omnivorous, but not in the case of the spotted hyena and wild dogs. But the jackals and foxes and brown hyena, they can be very omnivorous, and in fact the brown hyena can be a total vegetarian, which is really crazy. In the Namib desert they can actually survive on eating melons, which they find in the desert, and then obviously when there is meat around they will go for it, but they can also survive entirely on vegetable protein, which is absolutely phenomenal for a carnivore, supposed carnivore, that could then survive on vegetable protein. But jackals will also feed on a lot of fruits and melons. Chat Noir, you're wondering if there's any sign of the hyena pup. I'm going to be heading towards there shortly. It's starting to cool down a little bit. We came past there on our way before we started the show, and it was a little bit quiet. There was nobody out, and I think it might have been because it was too hot. But we're going to head back there, especially once it starts cooling down. Chat Noir, and hopefully we can spot that little cub again. And as we go through here, well, we've got some buffalo on our western side and still heading towards these elephants. I'm going to stop here for a nice view of them. What a wonderful setting that is, with a couple of the trees in the background, elephants grazing through. Just turn here a little bit, give us a nice view in front. There's that, Archie. Looks like a nice spot. There we go, in onto those elephants. Now, Melissa, you're wondering if I've ever seen a baby elephant that's too short to nurse. Melissa, I haven't. I have seen a stillborn elephant, which was very sad because the mother spent a lot of time trying to actually get it going, because they can push it around for quite a while, and she was almost confused as to why it didn't stand up. And then it obviously started to a baby too short to suckle or nurse, because it's almost that they are born at the perfect height just to be able to get underneath mom's front legs and suckle on her. So maybe there has been, I'm sure there has been, there's always that chance that there would be one too short, but you know how these things work, they normally evolved pretty perfectly for their survival. Now, I'm not sure what little bird that was on the back of the elephant, but there's lots of egrets around, and there's also some buffalo that have been moving through there. And the egrets are always present, looking for the insects bumped up by the big animals. And there's all sorts of other little birds that will be moving around them as well. Right, so what a wonderful picture this is. We might stay here for a little longer and see if we can spot any other animals coming through on the plains. But in the meantime, let's go over to
seeing lots of exciting things today. Now, we tried to go to that area that I was telling you about, but unfortunately the gremlins were so savage and wild down there. I don't think they'd ever seen a vehicle before, because they grabbed onto Manu, and both Maurice and I had to grab him by each of his arms and pull him back into the car. It was a disaster, so we got out of there very quickly. And we've left the river. We will try and get elephants crossing the river maybe tomorrow. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to see it then, or perhaps maybe tomorrow morning on the game drive. Who knows? Later in the afternoon, later on in the sunrise safari, it gets quite hot. Obviously, you saw me taking my 300 layers off today, and maybe we see them going to their destination. So we will keep trying over the next few weeks and see if we can get lucky. Now we are blitzing on one of the main roads, and I don't know where we're going now. I'm not lost, but I don't know where I should go. I think we might start heading back towards the marsh, because at least we know we can spend some time with some of the big herds of elephants, watch the little ones. Maybe we'll get them chasing egrets. Still waiting to see that. I haven't forgotten. So I think that will be our plan now, as it's going to get quite busy again. I think everybody's been out on a full day safari. They've been down to the border of Tanzania, and like I said, this morning we saw them all racing down there. And they're obviously doing one last trip along the river before they have to go home, and then we have the whole park to ourselves. So, oh, Kori bustard! Hang on now. You're sneaky in the grass. Very sneaky. Hello, I've actually seen a bustard here most days that I drive past this section. I don't know if it is the same one, but they are such spectacular birds, you cannot drive past them. Very curious. Didn't run away either. I'm sorry, I didn't even see you there. Thank you for not getting a fright and flying away. Although, I still have not seen a Kori bustard take off and land. Very, very slowly. Do you think that we can't see you, Kori bustard? It's moving like a heron, as if it was stalking fish, or something along those lines. But it's crazy how camouflaged this bird is. Now, as we look at this bird, you can see that it is quite a tall bird. I mean, it's... Oh no, there's a car coming, but we can quickly, we should be able to make it. You can see that, like I said, it's quite tall. And Brad, you heard one before, but probably about 1.30 meter, 40. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to drive in places where unfortunately there's no one else. Sorry everybody. With all these cars constantly coming around and where the animals are, sometimes when I have to move right off the road. So sorry Brad, they're massive birds. They stand quite tall. I'm 172. They're probably anywhere between 130 centimeters and 140 centimeters tall. So it's a very, very tall bird. Not as big as an ostrich though. That still takes the cake. But it is a very heavy bird with a massive wingspan. And it sounds like an aeroplane when they come into land. So one of my favorite things to watch and listen to is Egyptian geese, or any of the geese, or even ducks when they come flying down to land. They're coming quite quickly. That whistling that their sort of wings make cutting through the air is pretty spectacular. So I'm wondering if it's going to sound similar to that. I haven't even seen a video because I'm saving it for the real experience. Right, we'll see if we can find some more Kori bustards. It is a good spot to see them. I'm going to send you back on board with Ralph and see what he's up to next.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, well, we're still sitting here with these elephants off in the distance. And we just thought it was such a beautiful little scene, and sun to dip a little bit in the hope that those hyena are going to become active. We're not too far away from them. We are slowly making our way towards them, and it's going to be exciting to see what Scott and Noel are going to be able to find down south in South Africa too. Can't wait for them to come on board. But gullet. So a lot of birds need to throw their head back, enabling them to swallow, but doves and Kori bustards don't need to do that. And as we watch these elephants grazing as well, using their trunks to break the grass off and put it up into their mouth. Now, last night there was a few staff members that were a little bit scared in camp, because it seemed that there was 1 or 2 hippos moving between our tents, and I don't think that they had ever had an animal like that grazing near their tent, so they were very surprised as to how loud it was. Now, I know that there's a question coming through from David. To come through again, and I will answer it for you as soon as David, you're wondering if elephants or any other animals are ever born with dwarfism. Sorry, I didn't get the end of that. Now I did. Dwarfism, I don't know of any animals that I have seen or through my research. That's an excellent question, David, because in the nearly 20 years that I have been guiding, I cannot for the life of me think of an example or any indication of dwarfism that I've ever come across. And I think things like albinism and color variations, a lot, even though they're quite rare, still happen more than dwarfism, for instance. I'm not quite sure, but I cannot for the life of me think of any example. So, as I say, if there is, it must be a very small occurrence. But I'm going to keep racking my brain, and if I do think of one, I'll let you know, David. But for now, I cannot think of any. Very small dwarfism. Nah. Nothing coming to me, sorry. We're heading here a little bit in front of these elephants. Now, Fred, you're wondering if I prefer to call a group of elephants a herd or what was the other one? A parade. That's a lovely collective noun for elephants, and I think I'm going to go with that one. We'll go with the parade of elephants. I do like all these collective nouns, and I like that wobble of ostriches. That was a very nice one indeed. And a parade of elephants, that's a good one too. Let's look at the parade of elephants as they still come making their way through here. There's a couple of young parliament of owls. I like all these collective nouns. It makes it a little bit more interesting. We've been doing things a little bit differently today, trying to mix it up, but we're heading closer to the hyena den. And always good just to look on top of the trees, all these balanities, just see what there is. Now earlier somebody was asking what bird was calling in the tree when we were looking at the rock Angama, and it was going kukuru, kukuru, kukuru. Very rhythmic, methodical, and very often calling during the middle of the day. There's another one calling just a little bit off from us, and what we say with those birds, the ring-necked dove or the Cape turtle dove, in the morning but the later afternoon, and pretty much around this time as it starts to head towards sunset, they change from that work harder call and they move on to the drink lager, drink lager, drink lager. So for all the guys out there, that's your ticket to get yourself a beer and watch the sun go down. The birds are telling us that's what we should be doing. So we'll go with the birds, won't we? But I've got a little bit more work to do to try and see what animals we can find before I get to go and have my lager. And I'll work nice and hard indeed. Hey, we made it. Alright, getting nice and close to this hyena den, and just think, in this long grass there could be all sorts of animals that we're driving past without seeing them, so you've got to keep your eyes open. Now, Daniel, you're wondering if there's any snakes in the grass. Well, while we were driving here along the main road, we actually nearly drove over a snake. I had to put my brakes on and turn off to the side a little bit so that I didn't drive over him. And he obviously, with the heat of the day, he's got a lot of energy, so he scurried off into the grass and disappeared. But we managed to see that he was a lovely green olive color, and I think he might have been an olive snake, very, very descript. But we didn't get a massive chance to see what he was. Now, I've just spotted a bird here in front of us, and it is one of our kukels, and I've noticed that there are a few different kukels here in the Masai Mara, and I'm just wondering if this might be a Senegal kukel. He's very softly calling. We do also call them the rain birds because they do that. He's doing it very softly, but when they do that very loudly, it's normally a sign that there has been or is going to be rain. I wonder if it's a little bit of a contact call, and you could normally see that he's got a very red eye, but we're seeing him a little bit in the shade. If he turns to the left, we will then see that red eye. And these birds are actually prolific hunters. I've seen them carrying snakes of over a yard long. So they're not scared of reptiles at all. And all sorts of lizards and snakes and little tortoises as well. They do peck them out of their shell. So they're quite a sinister bird. Now, Brenda, you're saying that's number 52 on your list. Well, I'm glad I can help you bump that number up. And it's a lovely sighting, this indeed. These birds are actually a lot bigger than you think. And they're quite adept at running on the ground as well. Their track is very similar to that of an owl. And I do actually want to just show you the track. If I can dig out my book and get onto the bird tracks. I've drawn it in my book with one of the master trackers. Front. Now that obviously allows him to be able to go on the ground like a ground bird, not quite perfectly like a ground bird, but quite a so he's a hunter. You know, the other birds that would be like that would be the oxpeckers and also the woodpeckers that jump up and down and around the trees. So you've got a few birds that have this kind of adapted foot structure, and that obviously being of the Birchall's kukel. So even in this in this tracking book, they didn't include it in there because it's quite an unusual track to see, and we actually then had the master trackers show us, and then I drew it in because it's quite an important track to know. You will see a Birchall's kukel on the ground, and if you are not aware of their foot structure and what it looks like, you'll never know what it is. And that's the most important thing about tracking, is that you need to understand that it is actually the earliest form of science. Here we go, Archie. There we go. Nice double take of him. And why I say it's the earliest form of science is because it's a provable theory. And I hope you can hear him calling there. If we sit quietly, maybe we'll hear him do it again. Lovely call that, hey? Very fluid sound. I'm sure he'll go again. Lovely call that. Just listen out. I'm sure you can see his red eye now. Lovely. Lovely speckled coloration on his head and neck area. Alright folks, so we're going to sit here in the presence of this kukul for a little bit longer, but in the meantime I want to send you
elephants this afternoon. We've just headed out here in South Africa in the Sabi sands and have stumbled upon this massive elephant bull who's doing exactly what I wish I was doing, just relaxing in the shade. It is a scorching hot afternoon, probably well into the 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I forgot my thermometer. I'm not sure where, but I don't have one, so I can't tell you the exact temperature. My name's Scott. I'm teamed up with Senzo on camera this afternoon, and we're looking forward to a great afternoon with you. We had a good morning out, or at least Noel did. There was leopard around and some lion around, and I'm told that the lions were actually chased onto Djuma by some elephants. So hopefully they've come a little bit deeper into our property. They were just that he's tending to. You can see the whole tree shaking. What you'll also notice is that he's resting his trunk over his tusk. Now, I've often noticed that elephants that are in must will do that. It may also be elephants that are kind of snoozing like he is. But whenever I see an elephant doing that, I'm always just a little bit extra cautious of them, because when they are in must, they can be a little bit of a handful. But I have looked between his back legs, where ordinarily you would see a lot of moisture dripping from his penis if he was in must, but that is not the case. And what's also interesting about this spot is that I think this is one of the favorite places on the whole of the Djuma property that elephants very good shade. And if Senzo has a zoom in below any of the trees, really, we'll see a whole bunch of elephant dung, and there always is just piles and piles of elephant dung all over the show. I think he's added some fresh stuff in the background there. There's some older stuff, and this is definitely one of the elephant's favorite on bushwalk. It would be a great opportunity. Whole tree shaking again, a great testament to how big and strong these guys actually are. Now, we actually came into this specific spot because we did bump into a herd of elephants that were heading in this way through some quite thick vegetation. And they haven't arrived on the scene, so my prediction, I'm hoping though that he does. Ladies will give this guy something to get out of the shade and move around a bit for. Right now. Well, the air is so hot that needs to be factored into the equation, Jenny. It's like taking a kind of a deep breath of warm oven air. In terms of smell, I guess it smells quite earthy. I'm not picking up too much scent at the moment. It's kind of just like a regular smell. I'm definitely not smelling the elephants or their poop. The wind is blowing very gently from behind me towards this Ellie, so he's certainly having no impact on what I'm smelling. And I guess the smells really tend to be like I say, it's simply not too fragrant at the moment. Richard, you're wondering if this elephant is possibly scared of us, and no, he's literally just gone to sleep. He's got his back leg crossed over there, he's got his tusks and head resting up against the tree like a pillow, and he's absolutely relaxed. Sorry guys, I believe you just had a moment of frozen picture there. So I will get back to James's question asking whether or not this elephant could be scared of us, and absolutely not. He's definitely not scared of us at the moment. To a deep sleep. He's resting his trunk He's even resting the tip of his trunk on the ground, just laying it down. So he's certainly not concerned in the slightest with our presence. I wonder how long he's planning on snoozing for, because it'll be great to actually... Oh, well, he's just moved again slightly, but I think he is probably going to relax in the shade for quite some time, because it is simply so hot. Balsa, you'd like to know if Ellie bulls will ever track down cows that are in estrus, and yes, they definitely will. When the bulls are in must, they may be a little bit more proactive when it comes to seeking out the ladies, possibly a bit over-enthusiastic, but elephant bulls don't need to be in must in order to mate, and yes, I think they'll certainly pick up the scent of the females in must, and that would ordinarily get the guys with a bit of a spring in their step to chase along the herd and try their best to be the lucky guy. I've only seen elephants mating once. It was very early on in my career, and I hope it's something that we'll be able to share with you sometime soon. I'm not convinced live just yet, so that is something to look forward to. If it has been seen, it's something worth looking forward to happening again. Very good. I think I'm going to stay with this guy. He's such an impressive bull. He's got massive tusks, and it would be wonderful to see what he gets up to a little bit later, and if that herd that was moving through this area, well, it looks like he's decided that it's enough time to sleep. Now you can see him heading off, and who knows, maybe he's aware of this herd that's not too far away from here, and Senzo's just having to alter the settings as he moves from a shady spot to a light spot. That's what you would have noticed there. Very good. Well, we're going to see if we can try and catch up with him. It is very thick in this area, so we may not be able to, and while we try and renegotiate the thick bush, we will be sending you back to Ralph, who has some kind of a bird.
Thanks, Scott. Yes, everybody, we've just been following that kukul, and he's flown into a little thicket on top of a little bush, and there's now another two individuals as well. And now that I'm on this side of the light, I can see that it's not a Senegal kukul. In fact, it's a white-browed kukul, and you'll see that very clearly if Archie goes in on that individual on the bottom right. if he turns his head, you can see the very clear white brow above his eye. And I wasn't seeing that earlier. And so that's why I was thinking the Senegal kukul. Now, James Richard, you're saying a white-browed kukul that you love their call. Well, we've been hearing him call quite nicely, and we've said that it is lovely and fluid, but also that it is normally an indication of rain. And Archie and I were just chatting, saying, I wonder if it's going to rain. And if Archie goes out now, I wouldn't put it past these birds having gotten it right, because look over there in the distance, it looks like quite ominous weather building up. So I'm going to go with the birds, and I think we're going to get some rain a little bit later, because I really never hear kukuls calling except around rain. And it has always worked for me. And I'm sticking with that theory. So I think we're going to get wet a little bit later. Whether it's tonight or this afternoon, we're going to get rain. Because these birds know. A lovely sighting of a white-browed kukul. So sorry if I put you off with the false identification being a Senegal kukul. But we do have it now 100% white-browed. A lovely red eye. Now, Sherry, you're saying that it sounds a little bit like an owl. It does a little bit like a hoot, 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 hoot. But it's a bit quicker, that hoot, 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 hoot. And we say that that is a lovely African rain song. So it's beautiful. And there off in the distance with the storm approaching, hopefully it's going the other way so that we don't get too wet. Well, we always like the rain, but I think I'm going to start now making our way towards the hyena den. It's that time of the day. The sun has gone nice and down. But while I do that, let's send you on down to South Africa once again and say hello to Noel.